Bears. Bears Country Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the premiere of Bears Country Podcast. My name is Dan Shortino, at Mr. Shorty on Twitter, at Bears _podcast_ Bears _country _podcast on Twitter as well. I have goosebumps right now because I am so excited to launch this podcast that everyone has been telling me to do for a while because of my extensive love for the Bears. So this is more for the audience than it is for myself, because I think that once we dive into the kind of subjects we're going to talk about and the personality that I have, you're going to laugh a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit of a goofball. So I think all of that combined is going to make for a really fun podcast. And I'm just really excited and happy right now. And I want to thank everyone who's watching this right now. And thank you so much. So we are live. If you're in chat, we can bring you up in chat. I can also turn off my other computer so that doesn't make noise. And what the goal is of this podcast is anyone that would like to be involved in the live broadcast who's in the chat room, we have the ability to pull you in and talk to you live. So not only are we going to just answer your questions and talk with you in live chat and bring up your questions on the screen, but if you're so willing, you are more than welcome to join us on the podcast. All you have to do is email your Twitter handle or your email information to bearscountrypodcast@gmail.com. From there, we'll be able to link you on to the podcast with us. And if you are so inclined, as long as you're not sitting around in your underwear, you're welcome to come on with live video feed and talk Bears with us at any time. So I just have to express I have goosebumps right now because today is Walter Payton's birthday. And I'm unleashing this pod for the first time on Walter Payton's birthday. And it kind of chokes me up a little bit thinking about it because I've been so locked up trying to get all this ready, and it's been a lot of work trying to make a podcast, I'll tell you that much. But finding out today, remembering that today was Walter Payton's birthday, really means that much more to me as a Bears fan. It also happens to be the day after my father passed away, which is also kind of that much more amazing to me. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 parlay for me. And let's just go ahead and get on with the podcast. Thank you all for joining in. So today, I have one of my good friends. His name is Brian Rehberg. And we've known each other all the way from high school up until now. And just a little brief history on myself. I grew up in Lake County, Illinois. Massive Bears fan, to the point where I annoy everyone with it. And it was my wife who years ago bought me this mic and said, I bought this for you for your birthday so that you would make a Bears podcast. And I said to her, what the hell is a podcast? I had no idea what a podcast was. So here I am 5 or 6 years later, now understanding what a podcast is, understanding how to run a podcast, and using the mic that my dear wife, bought for me. So thank you very much, Kitty. Kitty is also my producer. Kitty has worked in the film industry for 25 years. She knows what it takes to produce something like this. All of this goes out to her. I love you, honey. So, without further ado, let's bring in Brian Rehberg here, and let's talk some Bears, Brian. Let's get to know you a little bit. What's up, my friend Brian?
Hey, Dan. It's great to see you again, buddy.
Good. I'm going to call you Broham, just so you know.
Hey, call me bro. Call me whatever you want.
This is my Broham right here. It's great to have you on, Brian. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with me. There was a list of people I could have chosen from, and none of them wanted to do it, but you did. So thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure. That's what I'm here for, man. Hey, our history, whenever people never want to do anything for you, you could always turn to me, and I would always, no matter how crazy it was, I was right there with you. And I'm really, really excited about this.
You're right about that. You've always been there in those crazy situations, like, oh, screw it, I'll do it for you. I'll help you with that. I don't care. So it's awesome to have you on here, Brian. Thank you so much. I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. I'm excited.
And Brian is an educator. He's a very intelligent man. He reads a lot of books. He also teaches football, middle school football. So, brief sidetrack. Brian moved down here into Georgia. What year?
2004.
And when Brian left, it was devastating because it was like, why are you moving to Georgia? Why would you go to Georgia? And then here we are, however many years later, and I'm living in Georgia with Brian, although 300 miles away, but still same state. And now I can actually understand why you moved here, because of the warm weathers. It's much better than living in that horrible Chicago cold. It's hard to even think about going back to it as much as I want to. I miss home, but coming down here like you did really opened my eyes to much warmer weather and a better climate. It's just you have 3 really miserable days, or 3 months, 3 really miserable months out of the year, and then the rest is actually pretty nice. So kudos to you for coming up with the idea. And I only ended up having to move here because my wife works in the film industry, and it took us here. And it's just been great to reconnect with you after moving here. So thank you for allowing that to happen. It's been great getting to see you again and reconnecting with you again after all these years, talking Bears, convincing you to do this with me. And it's been great. So awesome. Brian, tell us a little bit about you're a football coach. So you're coaching middle school?
Yeah. When I moved down here in 2004, I took a job at a charter school, and then I left that job and then got a job at the school I'm at currently. And right when I got hired, I get a phone call from a football coach saying, "Hey, I hear you want to coach football." And I was like, "No, I want to coach basketball." He's like, "Well, we really need somebody else. If you want to come in and work hard and learn, I'd love to have you." So I'm like, "All right." So I came in my very first year teaching at the school I'm currently at, and became a football coach, I guess. And to be honest with you, the learning curve was so immense that I bought books. I bought I bought the NCAA football video game just to try and learn the sport. And just through time, having great coaches around me taught me the game. Just a lot of learning and then doing. So that was about 15, 16 years ago. And currently I'm still coaching football. I'm loving it. It's a blast. The kids, they're great kids. They're fun to coach. So.
I love talking football with you when we do talk, because you have the different perspective from a coach's perspective that I don't have. In fact, I tried. You actually inspired me to try to see if I could get involved in coaching down here at my local high school. And they were like, "No, get out of here. We don't need anybody else." And I realized, like, I remember being in high school, and it just seemed like your coaches were your gym teachers, and you come down here and you realize that the coaches that you have are paid a lot of money to be good head coaches and be good coaches. And you do it year round here, which is fascinating to me, coming from Illinois, in Northern Illinois, Lake County, Illinois, that you guys have, I should say we guys, because I live here now, but football year round here, which is kind of fascinating to me, because I never even realized that occurred living in, Northern Illinois. You there? Did I lose you? Did we lose Brian's feed? Ah, damn. So now I'm on my own. Okay, so Brian, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I have coaching this week, and I have coaching this week, and coaching." I was like, "Wait a minute, this is the summer break. Why are you doing coaching right now?" He's like, "No, coaching is all year long here." And it kind of opened my eyes to, wow, what a difference that is from Illinois, where it's too cold to have that much football year round. And it kind of opened my eyes to, Friday Night Lights, the movie based in Texas, things like that. So I think we got Brian back. Looks like Kitty's got this. She'll take care of it. There you are.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I lost the connection.
Well, is there a storm there?
No, I don't think so. There's not supposed to be. No, I think we're okay.
That's my one fear about doing this podcast is I lose my power on a monthly basis here and my internet on a multi-monthly basis. So it's worried me, like losing my internet, having it drop on me.
Yeah, I just got a little nervous too. I don't know if it's just a connection. It's all good. If it happens, it happens. We'll get through it.
Well, I was talking about your how you coach year round down here, and how different that is from Illinois. When you told me a couple of weeks ago when we were hanging out, you were like, "Yeah, I got coaching this time, this day and this day," and we talked about like, wait a minute, you have coaching all year long here? You don't stop coaching football here, do you?
Well, there's rules you got to follow, and the kids do play their sports, but generally about May we have spring practice that goes for about 2 weeks, and then June you have lifting and like agilities. And then July, you have some lifting and some agilities, and basically you're starting your season. You're getting your installs in, you're getting your offense, your defense, you're getting your plan in order. Now, middle school is not as intense as high school. High school is really intense, and they'll go to camps, and they'll go to some media days, and the coaches will meet. But high school, there's, about 11 coaches, 11 to 13 coaches. We just have 4. So we have 4 coaches for anywhere between 50 to 60 players.
So what do you coach specifically then? You coach defense and what else?
Yeah, I run the defense, I guess defensive coordinator, and I linebackers. Because of the way things are set up, having only 4 coaches, I'm responsible for the inside linebackers and the outside linebackers.
Awesome.
Which they do work well together. It's just that they're different responsibilities, which makes it kind of challenging to coach them individually. But we make it work.
How does it work with everyone showing up for everything that they have to show up throughout the period, the different points in the entire year?
Yeah, a lot of them, they're pretty committed, and parents are happy enough to drop them off. It gives them something to do, a place to go. They go on vacation here and there, and that's fine. We go on vacation as coaches, So we do manage, and we work around each other's schedule, and we work around the kids' schedule. And like I said, we make it work and try to get as much work in as we can before the season starts. And today, pretty much the season officially started. So,
wow, today, huh?
Yeah, the kids were in helmets. They got to do 5 days of acclimation. They have to wear their helmet for 5 days. So a kid who missed today, when we're in pads, he'll have to only be in a helmet because there's specific rules.
Wow, what a difference!
Yeah, much different. It's funny because when I came down here, I remember when I was up in Illinois and I watched Friday Night Lights, and I did not understand the movie.
That's what I was saying when you were frozen. I was saying that.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just referencing that. Go ahead and say.
Yeah, I was just saying that I did not understand that movie at all. And then when I moved down here and the intensity of football, I was like, oh, now I get it. That it's religion in a sense. So different world.
Yeah, for sure. I've noticed that myself. So great to have you on. Thank you very much for being my first guest, Brian. This is amazing.
Well, I appreciate it.
So let's go into some of the rants I wanted to talk about on today's show, which was the first thing I want to talk about is it possible? So I want to kind of talk about the Justin Fields era as it pertains to Matt Nagy. Okay. So I'm kind of questioning right now if Matt Nagy. So this is why I say I want to put the Matt Nagy era to bed for good. Okay. Because I don't want to talk about this Matt Nagy era ever again. So I chose to unleash this podcast tonight before the night before training camp starts, which happens to also be Walter Payton's birthday. And Wow. So this way we can get all this crap aired out about the Matt Nagy era, just be done with it, and then just there's been so much, talk over the past year, all the off season about Matt Nagy and blah blah blah, and we're all sick and tired of hearing about it, right? Including myself. So I just thought this would be a good time to just put that to bed, never speak about it again, just air out all of our grievances with it, put it to bed, be done with it. Okay. And this is kind of I thought this would be a very interesting play because I worry about copyright problems. So I decided instead of showing a video about this, I would play the audio and I would give the entire audience my bad lip reading version of Matt Nagy and his expressions and his emotions as he held the press conference that first said that Justin Fields was going to be the starter. And the reason why I'm using this as I'm gonna go into this diatribe, and this is going to be pretty funny, is because I believe. So, if everyone remembers, at some point in the last season, Hub Arkush came out and made a big stink about a big article about how George McCaskey went into Matt Nagy's office and he told him Justin Fields needs to be the starter. And right after that, it was actually Andy Dalton was healthy and ready to play again. And he said on a Monday press conference that, yes, now he's ready and Dalton will be our starter. And then on Tuesday, Matt Nagy came out and had this very strange press conference acknowledging or telling the world that now Justin Fields is the starter. A day after he said, no, now Andy Dalton is our starter again. And so because I didn't want to run into any copyright issues, I thought it would be fun to do a play on putting the audio stream to me doing a bad lip reading version of Matt Nagy with his expressions as that press conference went when he was talking about Justin Fields becoming his starter. So I'm going to move the mic a little bit over to my other speaker on my other computer. And I'm just going to do a little lip syncing along with this. So bear with me.
That now he has this opportunity.
With all that, this is not just the run-of-the-mill normal quarterback change. How do you feel about something that is really a massive shift for the franchise?
Right. No, I think that for all of us, you're right, because there's a lot of discussions that go into this, and I think that in the end, what you have to do is understand that. We knew when we drafted him that he was going to have to work hard to get to this point. We just didn't know when. And again, I can't be any more honest when I tell you what the plan was from the very beginning, was to have Andy come in here and be the starter and insulate him and teach him along with Nick, which is so awesome. It's so awesome to have that. And they were doing that this entire time. They're still doing it. But then when that happened to Andy, it did change the course of where we're at, because it forced him to play. And now you get to see him not in the preseason, right? But you get to see him play. And now we got to be able to say, okay, where is he with what he's doing as an NFL quarterback? Where is he? Do we feel comfortable with him? That's a bunch of the other stuff behind the scenes, but obviously we do. And now we got to move forward with it. And you're right, it is a big decision, but we feel very good about it and look forward to it.
And because of the plan that you said that you had for.
Okay, so to avoid copyright issues, there's my play on his mannerisms and how he was speaking. And if you notice, there's a lot of uhs and ums and going on in that video. So what I want to bring to light is it possible that Matt Nagy really wanted Mac Jones, but Ryan Pace was trying to save his own job by drafting the quarterback that he thought was best to save his own job? And if so, I feel like ancient aliens right now saying that, and if so, is it possible that Matt Nagy just flat out didn't give the kid a chance from the beginning? Why in the hell would he put him out there in the Browns game with no protection, no play action passes, no rollouts, put him out there to get murdered, just absolutely murdered? Why would he do that to his... I have been going over this in my head for a long, long, long time. Since that happened, Brian, the day that game ended, I've been wondering, why in the hell was he just so incompetent? Or was it that he wanted Mac Jones and he was trying to prove a point to say, hey, this kid sucks. I wanted Mac Jones, and I'm going to show you the reasons why I wanted Mac Jones, because this kid can't handle it. Or is it just because he was literally so incompetent that he couldn't understand the concepts that it took to put his rookie quarterback out there to play his first game starting? What do you think?
I think.
Are you speechless? I'm sorry. You should.
No,
That was. I apologize if that was a little ridiculous.
no, not at all.
Mean, maybe this could be a segment. We'll do like a bad lip reading segment, since I don't want to.
Well, okay,
copyright infringement.
You got 3 layers right there. One, he's cow talent to his boss, which we all do at times. 2, the way it does seem from where he started and where he ended, incompetence is a good word to describe him. He wasn't ready at all. He just inherited a team in 2018 that was talented enough to win without, him really leading the way, and his incompetence didn't get in the way per se.
Right.
Now, I don't know who he wanted. And
I don't either, but it brings up a good question, right?
It's like, if you wanted Mac Jones, fine. Mac Jones, the jury's out. We've had a conversation about Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones right now, I think he's a solid quarterback. He's proven himself at Alabama. He got through, having to be led by Nick Saban, who's extremely difficult. I mean, that guy, he demands perfection.
Yeah,
and he just moved on to the next coach.
He kind of went from one to the other, right?
So he's in a very good system. Right. He's in a system that won't accept mistakes. Right. He's in a system where, like, one of the best examples was against the Bills when he threw one pass.
Right.
So
they ran the ball the entire game.
Now, granted, the wind, the cold. In fact, it's brilliant because they won the game.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
But it shows me that he's a manager. He's managing that team and that offense, and they'll build around him, and he just has to follow the system. Like in Alabama. I mean, we kind of had this talk. How many receivers got drafted? They're running backs. They're offensive line. The best offensive line was like number 5 or 7? I can't remember what number. Yeah. He was like top 10. So you have those guys in front of you. You got the guy behind you. You're throwing to studs who are first-round draft picks. Mm-hmm. When you get to the NFL, you might have some of your weaknesses exposed per se. However, he's with a guy who won't allow those weaknesses. So he's not going to be the star quarterback. Justin Fields could be the star quarterback. Justin Fields could be the difference maker for the Bears. He has that ability. He showed it he probably should have been the starter at Georgia, but Georgia already had, a championship caliber quarterback.
Yeah, they were just going to give up on Jake Fromm right away.
Right. So, and then he went to Ohio State and dominated. Right. So his first year,
he only went to Georgia because
he's from
accepted him, and he's from here, and everyone that's from Georgia wants to go to the Bulldogs.
Right.
So he thought himself as a legend if he went to Georgia and succeeded there, and went on to the NFL and succeeded. He would, even not at the NFL, he would have still been a legend. Everyone in Georgia just loves the Bulldogs, right?
Oh,
so they're even more than the Falcons.
But
my buddy said to me before, if you had the entire Falcons team walking down one side of the street and the entire Georgia Bulldogs team walking on the other side of the street, all the fans would flock to the other side of the street where the Bulldogs were.
Yeah, I believe it.
So that's how it is. I mean, they don't have. It took a while for them to even have a college team or a professional team, and by then they were all just so enamored with the Bulldogs. So I don't know. It just if like to your point, Mac Jones went from a system that was Bill Belichick like to another system that was Bill Belichick like. He went from the college Bill Belichick to the NFL Bill Belichick, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because when we were talking about this, I looked up Alabama quarterbacks, and I want to say A.J. McCarron was the first Alabama quarterback to win a game in the NFL in 20 years. And I was like, holy
really?
cow, yeah, I saw a stat like that. I'm like, and then A.J. McCarron is barely holding on.
No.
So
I actually thought A.J. McCarron would have been a better pro than he was. I kind of liked him in Alabama.
I did too, because he used to give Nick Saban crap. Like
Yeah.
he could mess with Nick Saban and get away with it. So
And
I'm like,
it
this
seemed-
guy's got some charisma. He's, but
to your point, like he was the first. If that's true,
I think it
I'm
is.
assuming you did your research on it. That if he was the first Alabama quarterback to win that many games, to win a game, is that what you're saying?
I think it was an Alabama quarterback in I think it was said 20 years. Now somebody could fact check me and prove me wrong. That's fine. But I was kind of interested in where these Alabama quarterbacks fall, just because, I mean, the program is incredible. They did have their downfall, but then Saban comes in and changed everything. So,
Yeah. Well, Saban went from LSU to the Dolphins to Bama,
right.
and the only place he didn't succeed within those two was the Dolphins.
Right. And it seems like he's more of a college type coach, which is
for sure.
fine,
He knows how to handle the college players. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, but again, I think Justin Fields hasn't gotten a fair chance yet, and a lot of this critiquing of Justin Fields there's a lot left to be seen, and I think you brought up a great point early on when we were discussing this, was just his throwing motion.
Yeah,
I think you hit on something. That if he can carry that over, especially into this year, in an offense that I think is conducive for him, he can be successful. People complain about the receivers, but the receivers, I think, in a good system, in a system that they will be given time to get open, I think they can flourish. They have a chance. So I'm thinking more glass half full right now.
So am I, because when you look at quarterbacks in the NFL, all the great ones seem to make their wide receivers. They seem to make their team better, right?
Yes.
All the great ones do. So you can look at, Rice and Montana. Did Montana make Rice or Rice make Montana? You could do that, but you can also look at all the receivers that came out of Green Bay that Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre made that went somewhere else and didn't succeed, right? So there is the quarterback factor that comes in when you're talking about developing your receivers. So I think that when you talk about, as you said, Justin Fields' throwing motion being corrected, he had J2K, welcome in. He had a throwing motion that came back like here and kind of brought the ball back down before he brought it up. And then everything that I'm seeing now, he's more bringing the ball like this and just getting rid of it quick. And I think it all has to do with rhythm and timing of the offense as well, which obviously has nothing to do with the train wreck of the Matt Nagy era. So I think all of these things combined, you're looking at someone who's going to be, in my mind, a superstar in the NFL coming soon. This could be the breakout year this year. I mean, anytime anyone poo-poos on the Bears and they have 50-1 odds or greater or worse, I should say, to win the Super Bowl, those are the only times I bet on that stuff. And I'm not a betting man. I don't bet, but I'll put $100 down on a 50-1 odds to win the Super Bowl on the Bears. And every time that I've done, they went to the playoffs. So in 65-1 odds right now for the Bears, I think that the odds are so low on them that they have nowhere to go but up. And therefore, you're going to see – I can't imagine it's not pissing off Justin Fields either. He knows what everyone's talking about. I mean, hell, ESP or is it Sports Illustrated or one of those two? ESPN called him out to be the quarterback who throws the most interceptions this year.
Yeah, did Colin Cowherd do that?
Yeah, and one of the other ones called him out to be the team that loses the most games this year. Like, we're gonna have the first pick in the draft, really?
Nah.
When is the last time the Bears had the first pick in the draft? Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So why really? We're gonna be that terrible. We went to the Super Bowl, or I'm sorry, we went to the playoffs 2 out of 4 years with a complete buffoon for a head coach. And now we're looking at a reset with someone who's defensive minded, go to the ball, attack the ball at all times, protect the ball on offense at all times. Someone who is a true head coach that's going to oversee the entire team.
Yeah.
Unlike a Matt Nagy who was like, oh, I'm going to leave this up to Vic Fangio. Oh, shit, he's gone now.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to leave it up to, let me find the next best. Oh, and then Chuck Pagano failed, right? And then Sean Desai Sean Desai kind of impressed me with what he had, with what he did with what he had. So of those three, he was the second best in my opinion. But when you lose the ability to just leave the one side of the team to the other coordinator, and then you have to start actually coordinating everything yourself, that's where Nagy went wrong, right?
Yeah, so, I agree. Yeah.
So in my opinion, Eberflus coming in now with his attacking defense, he's going at it. He's training all of it. He brought in Peanut to teach the Peanut punch. He's coming back for training camp. We're going to see it soon. Peanut Tillman will be back for training camp. He'll be teaching the Peanut punch before we even know. We'll be talking about that in a few weeks. So I think when you add to that the defense that they're going to have, and then you add an offensive scheme that's going to help the quarterback with a running game for once. Hopefully the offensive line gets figured out. That's for a different podcast. But we're going on Justin Fields' hope right now, and new head coach and new scheme, happiness. So with that, I think that the Bears have first off, I always say that the Bears have the best chance to beat the Packers when they play them at home when they played the Packers at the Packers in the beginning of the season. I would much rather play the Packers in the beginning of the season in Green Bay with a new head coach where they barely have any game film to study. They're only going to have the 49ers game. And I believe that we're going to win that 49ers game because they're going to go in there not knowing what this new coaching staff is going to do especially with Justin Fields, right?
Right.
And the running game that we have. So I'm thinking that we win that Niners game, we win that Packers game, we win that Texans game, we go 3-0. I could be way overly optimistic right now. I'm sure I am. I sometimes I get down, but right now I'm up. I thumbs are up for Bears for me right now as this season projects. What do you think, Brian?
Well, it's interesting you talk about the Packers because I was watching. I think it was ESPN. They were going through. I think it was Green Bay's schedule, and they had the Green Bay beating the Bears first, but then the Bears beating them later in the year. Huh. So I'm not sure.
Well, that just shows that they're wrong.
I don't know how to answer that question just because you're right. Everything is so brand new. I mean, their defense is new. Their offense is new. Their coordinators are new. I mean, everything is brand spanking new. So I think the film aspect of it, I think would side with the Bears.
Right.
Because trying to figure out defensively what they're doing, offensively what they're doing. And I think with this wide zone, really, if you can run it perfect, if you can slide, if each guy can slide perfectly in unison, we have the running backs that can make that cutback, that can make that read. And the truth of the matter is, you get that running game going, Justin Fields will be wide open. Cole Kmet may even come out of his shell. The receivers that everybody's ripping may become all pro. I mean, there's a lot that can transpire offensively. And if you're working down the field and you're keeping their offense off the field and we're killing that clock, and then you're going to force Aaron Rodgers to have to make plays without Devontae Adams, you're talking about a whole different, ball game here. So I am really – the more I've been reading, listening, watching, and trying to learn how the systems are playing out and the players and the personnel, I think there's a tremendous upside right now for them. I think people are using the past to base their decision currently, and a lot of people may really find out that they were wrong in the end. So
I think a lot of it has to do too with they're just trying to create, internet fodder.
Yeah, and
they're trying to go, who can we piss off the most to create the most backlash so we get the most likes and the most watched videos.
Yeah,
You know what
that's the world we're in. But I'll say this too: there's certain teams out there probably where that internet fodder plays perfectly because they're not,
exactly.
They're a train wreck. Like if this was last year, yeah, the internet fodder would play perfectly in the way the Bears were performing. But I mean, like I said, I'm really optimistic that they're going to perform well this year. And even if they don't come out ahead, I think they're going to be in games. They're going to be in pretty much all their games.
I think they are too.
Special teams might be, their kicking game, may go one way or the other. But I think there's tremendous upside right now.
Well, let's pull up the schedule. So the other thing that people don't talk about is last year's awful schedule where they were home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, or vice. They were away, home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, home. They never had 2 games in a row in the same stadium. Or I shouldn't say that because obviously they wouldn't do that away, but they never had 2 games at home and they never had 2 games away. Every single game was a different city.
Right.
And then you add to that the strength of schedule, the teams that they played, they had a lot of playoff teams. It was a very hard schedule.
Yeah.
Not even taking into account the away, home, away, home, away, home. So you add into you take all that and you contrast it to this season and you go, okay, we have San Francisco. We're home at San Francisco. Then we're at Green Bay. Those 2 are very winnable for me. Then we're home against the Texans. Easily winnable.
Yeah.
Home against the Giants.
Yeah.
That's winnable. At Vikings. I mean, I only really start to considering losses when it comes to the Packers. So I can consider the Vikings or the Lions to be a win on any given Sunday. Right?
They do have the Vikings as being one of those outside teams that actually they call them. They could be a Super Bowl contender.
So yeah, sorry, Steve Sigmund. Yes, the Bears make the playoffs. Yes, I'm getting to that. Hold on. So then you get to now it's at New England. Oh, that's going to be a good matchup, huh? Jones against Fields.
There you go. Now
that's going to be.
There's your Mac Jones, Justin Fields matchup.
Oh, that's a primetime game, too. It's Monday night. So that's going to be a lot of fun for everyone to banter back and forth about Jones and Fields. Then you have at Cowboys. At Cowboys, that could go either way. If you take so the next game is the Dolphins at the Bears. I take a win when it comes to an extremely hot weather team like that coming up to Chicago on November 6th.
Oh, yeah.
It might not be that cold in Chicago then, but it's still going to be a lot colder than it is in Miami. I'll tell you that much. And they've been playing there. They've been practicing there, and they've been, that's why we lost that 85. The 15-1 85 Bears lost the one game because they went to frickin' Miami.
Yeah.
Right? If that was in Chicago, that's a different game. That heat had something to do with it. I promise you that. Then you have Lions at home. Then you're at Falcons. Oh, that's the game you and I are going to.
Yes,
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's
That's
going
a
to be a
win.
blast.
Bears always win here. Then at New York Jets. That'll be another good one, huh?
That'll be interesting. I'm
Fields against Wilson.
Wilson and Brees Hall versus Montgomery, two Iowa State running backs. That'll be fascinating.
That'll be a fun one. Then you have Green Bay at home, week 13. That's a loss for me. Then there's a bye. Then week 15.
Wow, it's a late bye.
That's a perfect time too. Well, actually, it is a little bit late. Yeah. Then Eagles are at Chicago. I don't know. For some reason, the Eagles just pissed me off. 2001, there's still a hole in the door somewhere in Illinois where after that loss in the playoffs when they went 13-3. Then we have Buffalo at home. Then we're at Detroit, and then Minnesota at home. So obviously the Buffalo game scares me. That's probably a loss. At Detroit, I mean, we seem to own them lately. Minnesota at Chicago. I think we win that final game of the season. So I have them at 11-6 and making the playoffs. And here's the other reason why, Steve Sigmund, is because there's an extra playoff game now. So that's the other thing that pisses me off about them coming out with all these talking heads talking BS about the Bears being the worst team in the league, having the most interceptions by Justin Fields, blah, 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 blah. They didn't get this, they didn't do that, they suck. But then you look at this schedule and you look at the fact that they added an extra playoff team to the mix now. All that plays into, for me, the Bears making the playoffs. And I have extreme optimism at 11-6. I know I'm a little bit crazy right now, but I've been doing a lot of Justin Fields research, and I feel that he's taking this next step that's going to put him into the next tier, not the elite tier, but the tier that everyone thinks that he's in now. It'll take him out of that tier, put him into the next one. He'll be a tier 2 quarterback at the very least by after a few games. So I think by the time the season's over, we're going to be talking. The entire talking head world of Justin Fields is going to be eating crow because Justin Fields is going to have done things that nobody could have thought of. And I wanted to do some video like replays of his best plays this season, but it takes a lot of work to make a podcast happen. And if you have a full-time job, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that even more so. So maybe one day I'll get this all figured out so we can actually look at some of those plays that we're talking about. So we have what's going on? What's going to be the biggest upset in this year's schedule? What do you think, Brian? Have you looked at it?
Well, I mean,
we just talked about it.
I mean, one of those Packer games would be a big upset. Beating New England would be a huge upset.
I think the biggest upset would be beating Green Bay beating Green Bay at home in Chicago.
Okay,
that's my biggest upset.
I mean, their schedule is very favorable. So to talk upsets, it's like either Green Bay, New England. Depends on where the Dolphins are when they play towards the end of the year. That may, because people are starting to hype up the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill, with Tua.
Yeah, but what's Tyreek Hill going to do without Patrick Mahomes? That's going to be the fun
maybe
part.
He'll make Tua a 4-star quarterback. I don't know.
These are actually the two things I'm most excited to watch from other teams this season, which is Mitch Trubisky in Pittsburgh, because I want to know what a good coaching staff does for that kid after a few years of being in the NFL and getting some of those passes down that he couldn't throw in the beginning. Now he's able to throw them. We all witnessed them in the Bills preseason game where he threw all those passes that he couldn't throw while on the Bears. Those deep outs, those mid seam outs. And I think with a better coaching staff, he's going to be much better there. So I'm very excited to watch him there. And I'm also excited to watch what you were just talking about, which I lost my train of thought, which was
The Dolphins.
the Dolphins. I'm very excited to see what Tariq or the wide receiver that they traded
Tyreek
for.
Hill.
Tyreek Hill, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what Tyreek Hill is going to do in Miami for the Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa as their quarterback. I just don't see it happening.
I don't know. You got two athletes. You know, he may be a difference maker. I don't know too much about the rest of the players, but I do know that from watching some of the NFL Network, ESPN, reading, they've been hyping up the Dolphins, and that could just be because of the big pickup with Tyreek Hill. They're just hyping him up, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he did throw some pretty horrible passes that they put on Twitter that he had to slow down to catch because he runs like a cheetah.
Oh yeah,
So we'll see
4.2,
what happens with
4.3, 40. So yeah,
those are going to be my two watches on the NFL list for this year, not Bears related, which is going to be Mitch Trubisky and Tariq. I keep wanting to say Cohen. Tariq Hill. How does Tariq Hill do? That's going to be fun to watch. So moving on into our new head coach. Now that we're done with the Matt Nagy era, we put that to bed. It's dead. Never again. Don't bring it up. We're done with it. It's kind of like, in a way, I'm sick and tired of talking about the 85 Bears too, because it's like that's all we have to hold on to is the 85 Bears. And it just seems kind of sad. Like I'm sick of talking about it in a way, like we're looking at, Steve McMichael and what he's going through, and you're looking at everyone else. They're all getting up there, Brian.
Oh yeah.
And it's about time we start talking about a new Bears team. It's like I know everything about the 85 Bears. We can show all the clips you want. We can talk all about it. It's all been exhausted, right? To the end of exhaustion. It's time for a new Super Bowl team of the Bears.
And to add to that point is I think the Bears need their identity back.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's kind of where I'm getting a little excited this year is I'm starting to see that identity, that run first, seeing that, that an offensive line that starts working in unison, a tough-nosed defense, which Eberflus, he manages a great defense. When I was hearing about the Indianapolis Colts and how, just tenacious they are. And you got, 11 white helmets to the ball and he brought that to the Bears and he started to bring that identity, just that toughness that we're all used to.
Right.
And, the Bears, they don't have to be a flashy team. Just be that tough, just get, your nose in the grind and just get after it. We can get those years back, I think, if we find that identity and the players believe in that identity. And Ryan Poles believes in that identity. Let's not try to reach for something that doesn't belong in Chicago.
Right.
So,
I mean, before we get to Steve Sigmund's question, I agree with you on the identity. I just think we need to shift the identity from constantly being defense to let's try to make this offense. I mean, let's try to balance it, of course, but we've always been known as a defensive team. So let's make this an offensive team that when people think about the Bears, they think about offense. That's where I want to go with this. Of course, you want the great D, but it always seems like the money's been put into the great D.
Right.
Let's put that money into the great O. And we kind of tried it under the Trestman era, and we succeeded for 1 year. It was actually fun to watch that 1 year, but boy, did that turn into a freaking train wreck. Right? So, Mr. Steve Sigmund has a question for you, Mr. Reberg. Do you prefer a 3-4 or a 4-3?
I mean, it all depends on your personnel. It all depends. I mean, for me personally, right now, I'm running a 3-4 defense. But at my level, it works because there's a lot of different ways we can play the 3-4. There's a lot of different things, like we could show a cover 2, we could show a cover 4, we could play cover 3. We can use our rover as another linebacker. So there's a lot of moving parts in a 3-4, but I also like a 4-3. I like having 7 guys in the box, especially when you're playing the run. What's interesting, even at my level, is that how much passing is starting to happen. And so you have to be able to adjust with, a defense that can stop both the run and the pass. But then you need players that can play those positions. Fortunately for me right now, I do have a rover that can play linebacker. He can play strong safety. He can move around the field. But
you need in a 3-4, you basically have to have those edge rushers are the biggest. And that you take away from your linebackers at that point by using those rushers, right? So
we have those currently. I'm fortunate enough to have 2 outside linebackers that are strong, that can hold that edge, that can force everything back inside. So it all depends. And now, not to say what I'm doing, but like the Bears, from what I read about the Bears, it seems like the 4-3 is actually going to be a better fit. For one, they got rid of Khalil Mack, and that guy was an absolute just madman on the edge. Mm-hmm. And I think Khalil Mack made Robert Quinn an incredible. Didn't Quinn have like 18 sacks last year?
18.5
sacks, and Khalil Mack had like 9 or something like that.
But he played 7 games. I think he had 5 or 6 sacks in those games, which was pretty impressive. Still, I mean, who knows what would have happened if he finished the season? But to your point, go ahead.
Yeah, they keyed Mack. I mean, if I'm an offensive coordinator and I see Mack, you got to stop that guy. So that opened up for Quinn. But Quinn brought up a great point. He goes, he struggled though. Surprisingly, he said, I struggled because as an outside linebacker, you got to do a lot of reading because you're standing up. So you got to do there's a lot of stuff happening. He's like, no, I can put my hand in the dirt and I can just go. Right. I'm like, well, okay. I guess the 4-3 is going to suit you just fine. Hold it, coming off that edge. So I'm anxious to see what they do with the 4-3. So kind of going back to, and they talk about Tampa 2, and I'm not sure because Tampa 2 is that middle linebacker. He releases. So you're showing cover 2, you're showing cover 4, whatever. Then all of a sudden your corners go to the flats, your safeties go back, and you're thinking, oh, the middle of the field's wide open. But no, there's this middle linebacker covering it. Or vice versa, your safeties come down, cover the flats, and then your corners are releasing. I mean, you could do a lot with it. But the question is, do you have a linebacker that can get back there? So I'm not sure if they are going to be running a Tampa 2 style defense with it, which Eberflus relies more on his will than he does his Mike because he had Darius Leonard.
Right. He's more of a traditional Tampa 2 as far as using the will, but he mixes it up a lot different now in modern scheme. Takes
that Sam out. He brings down that nickel, which the Sam backer, to my understanding, is almost non-existent in the league now because it's more of a 4-2-5 look, not really a 4-3 because there's so much. I mean, either 3x1s or bunch sets or you're playing pass first. So it's going to be interesting, and they're talking about that 3 technique. Which who was it?
Ogunjobi?
I think so. Is it? Yeah,
the guy that didn't sign.
Yeah, and was it Tona playing the 1 technique? I think.
Oh, on the defensive line, you're thinking of the guy. He was still on the team from last year. Tonga. Kyrie's Tonga.
Okay, so I think he'll be the 1 technique.
He's more of a 1. Yeah,
and
but
I'm
that 2, if Justin Jefferson can get that 2 down, it might make up for the lack of the signing of Larry Ogunjobi because it would have cost a lot more. So there's a lot of hope going on and going into this season with some certain positions, right? So it does make it for interesting conversation. Did I lose you again? Oh, jeez.
Sorry, man. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I'm like, I got to go back to it again. Yeah, Tonga. Thank you, J2K. J2K, thank you for coming in tonight. Pleasure to talk with you. So we were talking about the defensive scheme under Eberflus and how it's going to look in regards to contrasting to the Lovie Smith defense, and I think it's going to be interesting because I think they're going to be using Cruikshank a lot. Dane Cruikshank, who they signed, the strong safety who they signed. I think he's going to be playing a lot of Sam here and there because of the defensive packages they're going to put him in. So that's going to make for interesting defensive schemes. He has a lot of pieces he can work with, as much as people don't think that he does. So, in my opinion, I think Quinn probably is going to have less than 10 sacks this year because, I mean, I know it's hard to like project and go, oh, well, he's had an up and down year every, he has this many sacks and he has this many less sacks the next year and this many more the next year and this many less the next year. It's kind of up and down like that. It's hard to say if he'll be like that with the Bears, but my assumption would be that he would because, he's going from a 3-4 back to a 4-3, and it might be his most natural position, but it's hard to say what's going to happen. Same with DHC. It'll be a good camp battle. Yes, it will. I can't wait to see the camp battle with DHC, J2K. That's going to be a lot of fun. This is why I wanted to get this podcast going tonight. And by the way, this podcast is probably not going to maintain its Monday night progression because I don't want to compete with Monday Night Football. I like to watch it too. So I'll probably, at some point, I'm going to be doing a post game or a pregame, and then probably a post game, and then like a Wednesday podcast. Because there's two things I don't want to do. I don't want to miss Monday Night Football. I don't want to compete with Barroom Network because they're my favorite network. And by the way, I want to give out a shout right now to Jordan Silvera for having me on Bare Necessities on his podcast on the Barroom Network. And thank you to everyone at the Barroom Network for allowing that to happen. It is what has truly put my ass into gear to make this happen, which has been a lifelong dream of mine. So kudos and shout out to Barroom Network and shout out to Bare Necessities and Jordan T. Silverman, Jordan T. Silvera, which I will be on this podcast with him on this next Thursday night again. So we seem to be having a lot of fun. So tune into that as well. Jordan T. Silvera, Bare Necessities. I'm having a lot of fun doing his co-hosting with him too. So I'm hoping to have him on actually next week. So if he has the time, he's welcome. And let's go ahead and kick it off into the next subject, just not to keep this, to make this 4 hours long. I want to talk a little bit about some of Justin Fields' stats before we move on to the next subject that I have. So Justin Fields on, big time throws, passes over, 20 yards. He's 17 of 270, which is fourth highest in the league. His passer rating on rhythm passes, 1, 2, 3 drop, 1, 2, 3 throw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 throw. He has a 99.9% passer rating on those passes. His play action pass percentage, his quarterback rating is a 105. He has 9.3 yards per play action pass, 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Yet, the Bears were 28th. They were ranked 28th in the league on play action pass attempts, which further adds to my grief with this Matt Nagy era and putting him in the wrong position, seemingly on purpose, to fail. And that's all I have to say about that, because I think we're done with the Matt Nagy era. But I did want to go on to some of my other points that I had written down. Which was Roquan Smith. So the news just broke today that Roquan Smith is holding out, Brian, which kind of is perfect because the promo that I put out for Bears Country Podcast was, "What's up with Roquan?" So here we are, day one of the podcast, the premiere podcast, and Roquan is holding out. I want to bring up some of these questions here, or some of these points from J2K. I agree. Similar amount of plays that Quinn is rushing the quarterback. I agree, yes. subtract Quinn playing in coverage. He's not going to play coverage. He can't play coverage, right, J2K?
Well, if you decide
the
zone blitz will be about it.
Yeah,
But that
just doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
So let's bring up a couple other questions here. Can't wait to see Fields unleashing the deep ball on those play action plays that fool the defense. I agree. Like those things, there's a few things that he's great at. It's moving into space to make that pass, because he's not a run first quarterback. He's a pass first quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's a run second quarterback. When you put him in the wrong situations like Nagy did, of course his instinct is going to be to run, right? So when you watch him throw those deep balls, I had some videos I wanted to pull up, but I was worried about some copyright issues with the previous podcast I was on with Jordan Silvera on Bare Necessities, where it got cut off at the end because of, use of too much. So I just was in fear of using too many clips, but so therefore I didn't pull up any videos of him. But you can see there's just the plays that mattered, where he was improvising and he had to like break the concept of the play and tell Nagy to F off in his head and just do what he had to do, kind of like, McMahon did to Ditka in the day. He made those plays work. So that's why I'm just wrapped up the Justin Fields. I mean, I am so high on Justin Fields. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what he does this year. I really think he's going to explode, and that everyone's going to be talking about Justin Fields. And then we're going to be talking about Justin Fields, and gosh, that'll be a lot of fun. So the next subject I wanted to talk about was Roquan. So back to Roquan. Now he's holding out. I knew he was going to hold out, Brian, because he doesn't have an agent, right? B, he's playing in a new defense. He himself doesn't even know what the value of himself is in a 4-3 defense. Could you imagine being Roquan Smith? You've been playing a 3-4 defense your entire, college NFL career. Now your contract year is up, and you're being moved into a 4-3 defense, and you have to like come up with your value in that. I knew that was going to cause a problem. Why wouldn't it? Where do you discern what your value is in a 4-3 when you haven't played it on tape in an NFL defense? So that's what kind of scared me into the thought that he might actually hold out, which begged the question to me: does he like the 4-3? Does he like Eberflus? Does he not like Eberflus? Does he not like the 4-3? Is he happy? Is he more comfortable in the 3-4? That's what he wants to play. He wants to be paid like a 4-3 or 3-4 middle linebacker, which would be silly, which would lead me to, does he want to be paid the 4-3 Mike linebacker position when technically that makes more than the will? So, and back to one of your point, Brian, I think that Brian Urlacher kind of made the 4-3 Mike linebacker what it is, because he proved to Lovie Smith, who wanted to trade him when he first got there, because he didn't think he was a good fit as a middle linebacker in the 4-3, and he wasn't going to play him at will. That brings us to this point: is Roquan Smith a 4-3 middle linebacker, and does he want to be paid like a 4-3 middle linebacker, even though he's playing will? Even though nobody said what he's playing, it still begs the question. And now, boom, here he is holding out. Thoughts?
I'm not sure what his intent is, because Darius Leonard's the highest paid linebacker, and he's a will. And Darius Leonard is coming, and the head coach is the coach who coached Darius Leonard, who's the highest paid linebacker and plays will. So if Roquan plays will, which frees up, he could be a playmaker.
Yes.
And then looking at the other guys who are up there in salary, they do come from 3-4 defenses. So they're inside linebackers. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure exactly which one they would call the Mike or they would call the will. But you have Fred Warner of San Francisco and C.J. Mosley, I believe, with the Jets. They're Mike linebackers, and they're one of the top paid players. And was it Levante David from Tampa Bay is up there too, and I think he is an inside linebacker. So I don't know what he's thinking when it comes to position. I think he's going to get his money if he performs. He is making almost $10 million a year. I guess he's holding out for that big, giant, huge contract with all that guaranteed money. And I know you guys had that conversation. You and Jordan had that conversation about quarterbacks and all that money. And
right, what are you willing to pay someone who has never played that position?
Right. And then what was it? The discussion was I see on ESPN he's declared as a Mike, but then there was talk that he's actually the Will. So
right.
I think either way.
I personally watched all the press conferences from Eberflus this past offseason. At one point, they asked him if he was playing the Mike or the Will, and he said they didn't know yet. But then later on, I think it was the same press conference, he said he referenced Roquan as a Mike. So, I mean, this is where it gets exactly, Steve. $20 million per year, exactly.
And they do have the money.
That's for sure. Pay him. But my question is he holding out because he wants to be paid MLB? Or sorry, not MLB. He wants to be paid middle linebacker? Yeah. But he's playing Will, and he's negotiating his own contract without an agent, which is causing the holdup on this.
I thought Spot Track had an agent name. I thought he did have an agent. It said it on it, but I'm not sure if that's true or not.
I agree, Jordan or J2K. I think he is better in the run game, but they have to have those fat pigs up front. That's my only question. Do they have the fat pigs up front to free the lanes for him to make those running back tackles? We're going to find out, I guess. Is Tonga the piece that we need to keep all the offensive linemen from barreling down on him? Because it's going to be an interesting.
Yeah, it's a gap control. It's gap control defense. So if you have that center and that guard coming down on the 1, and that tackle and that guard coming down on the 3, that frees both the Mike and the Will up. So
yeah, let's talk about that. J2K and Steve Sigmund have brought up that his mom is his agent, which kind of like brings me to. Why your mom? Like, if you're going to make an agent, a friend or a family member your agent, I would just think you would want to make it someone who wasn't your mom. Like if it's your mom, you're kind of proving a point. Hey, I want my mom to get the percentage of my contract.
I was going to say it keeps the money in the family. So
right.
The 3% or whatever they charge.
So basically, he's his own agent, but he's giving his money to his mom.
Fair enough. I guess instead of just writing a check, she's got to earn it. Yeah.
Right. So where's the negotiating happening then? Like, is his mom a bulldog like my wife running this podcast?
Yeah.
Is she a bulldog? Is she going to go in there and pound on the table for him, or is he the one running the show and his mom's making the capital from it? So
that's a great question. There's also a lot of laws in place here. We're talking about contracts, and there's language in these contracts. I mean, maybe she does understand. I don't know the woman.
We can't speculate. No, of course not.
Maybe she goes in. This is what she does for a living.
Maybe she's a bulldog. And he's like, I can only trust my mother with this.
Yeah. Some of these guys, that's how they grew up. I don't know.
And but J2K Briggs didn't get the largest contract of the 2 linebackers, did he? Urlacher had the bigger contract because their contracts were up back to back, I think, if I remember correctly. So Urlacher got the big contract, and then Briggs got his big contract, and all of a sudden his Lamborghini was found on the side of the road, crashed into a medium, and there was no one to be found. So it's like, what I guess the question of this is, what does Roquan value himself as? Because he's moving forward into a different defense, and he doesn't quite know where he fits in it himself, I would imagine. And to your point, Simon, we talked about that on Bare Necessities last week. I really don't have any questions about DK Metcalf. I think that he's a fine receiver. I think he would be good for the Bears. I just don't think it's even possible to even talk about making a trade for DK with Roquan. It's just sign Roquan. He's one of your defensive pieces. Give the damn man his money. But I think the problem is that we're talking about is the lingo of the contracts because his mother is his agent, right? So if his mother is his agent, or regardless, if he's his own agent, the two are the same, right? So if he is, he's not controlling his contract situation like an agent would be, right? He's not. Normally a player's off doing their own thing, and there's the agent doing all the stuff in the background for them, like my wife is running this pod, right? So I'm here doing my own thing. Renee's pulling up all this wonderful stuff. So what happens when you have to do all this yourself? It becomes a little more difficult. So I don't think that I just worry that him being his own agent is going to have some effect on this. Maybe he doesn't want to call the plays, Steve. I don't know. It's quite possible. Maybe he wants to be a middle line. Maybe he wants to be the middle linebacker. But they don't want him to be because they know he's going to be the will. He's going to be an amazing will. But he's like, I want the middle linebacker spot. So it's going to be really interesting now, knowing that he's holding out now, as I kind of expected would happen. And what's going to come of it from here, based on all those things we just talked about, being his own agent or his mother being his agent, one and the same,
Didn't he hold out his rookie year though too?
Exactly. Yes, he did.
So he's kind of now he's building
he's building a rapport of holding out. That was part of my fear too, and I actually thought it was going to happen because of that, and it did.
Yeah,
I know. It's difficult.
It's hard because, like, with the changes of the defense, the new responsibility, all this money going to the quarterbacks, all this money available, he is a very important piece of that defense. I couldn't imagine him not being on that defense and what would happen if he was to leave or he holds out. I can't think of another replacement.
No, they have to sign him.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
I think it's a Kyler Murray situation. When you and Jordan had that conversation, Arizona had to sign Kyler because there really was nobody else.
Right,
and
exactly.
Now I think Roquan maybe Roquan's picking up that vibe of there's no one else to replace me. So if I want $20 million, you got to give me $20 million. And the Bears may have to give him $20 million. And that takes away then like your dream of having this, offense that with all these weapons.
Well, let's talk about the salaries of middle linebacker. Let's see. Like if he is actually trying to hold out for middle linebacker pay in a 4-3, again, pay him. But my question is, what is that? 22 million, 25 million? Steve Phillips, he is Lance Briggs 2.0. I 100% agree he is Lance Briggs 2.0. But he wants to be paid like Urlacher 2.0.
He doesn't. The thing is, he doesn't have the stats yet to do that. And the other part is, okay, we're looking at stats too, but we also got to look at the position itself and what he does for the defense.
I agree with J2K here. That I think Roquan will play better in this defense than in the 3-4. I agree. I think he will too. And that's probably some of the reasons why he's holding out, because he knows he will. It's like we start getting into this no man's land of contract talk that no one can understand other than what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And it's like it makes for good conversation for that much. I know that much for sure. So
A lot of speculation on our end because
Yeah.
we don't really know what was it Greg Gabriel said today? Maybe he's also holding. Maybe he says other guys did this. He just doesn't want to do a training camp. He's like, I don't need to. But being in a new defense, he should be there because he's got to.
Well, he was the first one to show up for all the
So maybe he knows it
involuntary OTAs and all that stuff.
Okay.
He showed up for everything when there was a lot of other veterans not showing up. He did show up for this.
Okay,
for
so
all
maybe
those.
he's like, I got this. I just need 2 weeks off. Then I'll sign.
Yeah,
Who knows?
maybe. I doubt it. I really
Yeah.
think he's in a negotiation standstill.
So then what does this do with the Bears with Brisker now? The only rookie not signed. I mean, now you got to deal with your star defensive player, and you got to deal with the guy who.
Well, I'm not as
really
worried
help.
about Brisker because Brisker is a rookie.
Right, but they got to deal with both now. They got
Right. Yeah.
It could. I don't know if one's going to impact the other, but those two guys should be there,
Right.
especially Brisker being the
Well,
rookie.
one being a rookie, kind of, you can compare that to Roquan in his rookie year, right? He still got there in time.
Yeah, true.
He missed a couple of weeks, but he made it in time. But so that makes me not worried at all about Brisker. He'll get there in time. But I'm more worried about Roquan because this will become a serious standoff where he is not coming to
Right.
camp. And then now he's in a brand new defense, trying to make the top money of the linebackers. They're unwilling to pay him because they don't know what his worth is in that 4-3 yet, right? Like, I mean, hell, polls could be deliberately just trying to put him into the franchise tag next year, which would be a terrible idea because it would piss him off.
Yeah.
But he might do that to find out what his worth is in this 4-3 after this season,
Right.
right? Because they don't do like contract negotiations in the middle of the season. They do them in training camp. By the time you get over with training camp, it's pretty much the end of it, right? So if they don't sign him by the time training camp's over with, then he's playing on a franchise tag after the end of next season, right? Because this is his final season. That's going to piss him off. It's going to turn a whole new leaf on the Allen Robinson era, and then he's gone. Which brought up Jordan's point on bare necessities about trading him. Try to get something for value of him if you know you're not going to be able to sign him.
Right.
Because we don't know what's going on with those negotiations. We really don't. I mean, there could be so much more. Obviously, he held out his rookie year. What's going on in his second contract, right? In a new defense. Where does he value himself in that? What are his thoughts in that negotiation? There's so many avenues to that. It's like we can speculate for hours. It's just going to be interesting to watch as it goes on and it plays throughout the preseason. That's kind of why I wanted to get this podcast going before our first training camp, so we can kind of continue to progress as it goes on and talk about this, as training camp goes on. And we'll have a lot more to talk. Again, this is all just like, this podcast is basically based off of all of the previous years, garbage we're just airing out and getting to this point and trying to get off our chests before we can finally move on to the next era and start talking about all the new stuff, So that's kind of what this podcast is dedicated to. So I hope that he wants to play for the Bears. We know he loves football. So I hope that he wants to play in a 4-3 under this team with the new head coach and the new defensive scheme, and he wants to flourish in it. And that'll help him to motivate himself to get this contract done. Because at this point, the longer it goes on in a holdout, it's going to kind of show, where we're at day by day, right? Like, it's the more and more talk is going to be day by day. What's up with Roquan? What's up with Roquan? Some people get angry when talking about trades. Could be his issue, Steve Phillips says. I mean, that could be. Maybe he's heard these podcasts and he's like, maybe I should Maybe I should hold out. I mean, who knows? Thoughts? No? Yes? No?
I'd say if that's the case, then he's got some very thin skin. He's got to toughen up a little bit here because he's letting like pundits dictate, his stand where he stands with the Bears. I don't think that's it. I think I honestly, the more and more thinking about it, the more we discuss it, the more the way the business is operating.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'd be curious to know if that Kyler Murray signing didn't kind of like he's not Roquan might not be the only one. People start realizing, when teams, especially in football, when you do have a good piece in place and there's no one else to replace that piece. You have a good, standing from a negotiation standpoint. So
you start to value yourself even that much more.
Yeah. And like I said, I think within a Bear system, Roquan is a Bear type player. He fits that identity, and the Bears have the money, and he knows the Bears have the money. It's not like what are they 19, 20 million under the cap or something?
Well, he knows next year they're going to be even more. So he's no dummy.
No,
the one thing I do appreciate about him is not hiring his own agent, because it's kind of like selling your house, but you don't want to go through a realtor. You want to go by owner. Right?
Yeah.
So you can make all that commission. Like if you have $100,000, let's just say 100. We'll make it an easy number. If you have $100,000 in equity in your home, and you sell your house. Right now, you're paying 3% to your real estate agent, and you're paying 3% to the other real estate. You're giving 6% or 7% away off the top. So now you're giving $7,000 right off the bat of that $100,000 you made on your home, right? And nobody wants to do that. It's a lot of money when you're talking about you've never had that much money before, right? Holy shit! I have $100,000 in my bank account now. Oh, I have to give $7,000 to my real estate agent. It's kind of like the same thinking. Exactly. It's kind of like the same thinking as with an agent, right? Like, do I want to give that percentage to my agent where I can just keep it and give it to my mother or my buddy? Or you see a lot of that now where people don't have agents for agents. They have someone that they know. They have a buddy that they start an LLC with and make him their agent or whatever, and or now in this case it's his mom. So it's going to be It's going to be a very interesting discussion for the next couple of weeks as to what's going on with him. And I really hope he gets. I really hope he gets what he deserves, because he does deserve it. And I hope he stays with the Bears. And I hope he retires with the Bears. That's my thoughts on him. I love Roquan.
I like him too. I like his game. I
remember the first time I saw. Well, not the first time, but I was watching him in the Bulldogs championship game, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was saying this to Kitty. I was like, we have to draft this kid. If he's available, we have to draft this kid. And boom, he was right there, and we drafted him. I was like, oh my gosh, we got Roquan Smith. And he's been nothing but in fact, the fact that he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet is quite disgusting to me. He is a Pro Bowl caliber player. You look at his stats, they compare to the best of the best. Ray, what the hell is his name from the Baltimore Ravens?
Ray Lewis.
They compare to Ray Lewis's stats after this period of time. So he deserves it. Give him the damn money. I know we all know he has his mother as his agent, or he's his own agent. Just give him the damn money. Just get it done, Cliff. Get it done, Cliff Stein. You can do it. I have that much confidence in you. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much our topic of discussion. I think we've covered everything. Like we're going on an hour and 24 now. I don't want to make this a 3-hour discussion. Like you get a little bit tired after a while. So
we can only say the same thing over and over again.
You can only do the same thing over and over again, and it's like we've been just pounding this discussion for months because there's nothing to talk about. I just kind of wanted to wrap up, the discussion on the Matt Nagy era, get my thoughts out there on Justin Fields, superstar in the making. Talk about the Eberflus defense, and then Roquan. And Roquan is now the most important piece that you need to make happen. Sign the man, pay his ass. He deserves it. He's worth it. He'll make your team better. Doesn't matter if you're changing systems. He's the key to the new system. Make it happen. So any what about the wide zone? You want to talk about wide zone, J2K? Oh, J2K. I went down a wormhole on this too. I started looking at every Rams offensive play from last year, every Packers offensive play, every 49ers offensive play. And wow, what a difference between the schemes within the same scheme. You know, you have I saw a lot from the tape I watched on the Rams, where there was a lot of 5 wide receiver sets, a lot of them. And I don't know if that's because they were just challenging the Bears in that game 1 last year, but there was a lot of 5 wide receiver sets. Packers go to a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Niners, to be honest, I hadn't got that far. I didn't think I was going to use any of this on this podcast, but the zone schemes are very much different as they relate to different coaches, right? So it depends on what your pieces you have, I guess, right? Your running backs, your wide receivers. Do you have 5 wide receivers you want to put out there, at any given moment? Do you have the Packers have 2 pounding running backs that run a different scheme. They run different styles. So what do you think about the wide zone, Brian? You know much about it?
It's funny because there's the spread, there's the RPO, I guess the wide zone, then there's the mixture, there's a hybrid of both. It's difficult to and like you said, each system has its own way of operating it. To my understanding, because coaching football, we did try to run a zone style type offense. For one, you need athletes. Don't have athletes, you can't run it. NFL players.
You don't have athletes in Southern Georgia.
Yeah, not the ones that can run the wide zone. But anyways, from what I've listened to, it was basically from the offensive line standpoint. Like Joe Thomas was talking about it, who retired from the Cleveland Browns. And he just basically, what he said is that once that line was working in unison, once they're moving one way, you can't stop it. And if you've got a running back that can put his foot in the dirt and read and counter and go back the other way, make a cutback, it's so hard to stop. And once you perfect going right, you perfect going left, the defense, they're left guessing what's happening. Now defenses, if they're disciplined and they know their reads, that's the counter to it. But from a Bear standpoint with the wide zone, what I like about it, looking at Herbert's numbers and even Montgomery's numbers per se, you average 4.5 yards a carry, you're going to work your way down the field.
That's correct, J2K. It's all about the running back reading and setting up the linebackers.
And the thing is, I've just getting ready for this podcast to make sure that I kind of know what I'm talking about, or at least hope I know what I'm talking about. The reads are different too, because sometimes you read the end, but then sometimes you read the middle linebacker. I guess it all depends on what you're trying to run.
Right.
So the scheme, it's a general term, wide zone, but it derives from spread, it derives from RPOs. So it's been around for a while. It's just which coach is putting its little wrinkle in it. I guess Getsy, he's got his wrinkles. And we do have the running backs. I think we got the running backs to run this. I guess the offensive line is the question mark, which you said will be spoken about at a much different another time. And training camp will probably start showing what the offensive line is going to be able to do with this wide zone.
And to J2K's point, as long as our tackles can make those one-on-one blocks, it's far easier to run, which is entirely true.
I think it's that backside tackle.
The
backside tackle is going to go one-on-one.
Right. They set up the the C and the D zones that basically everyone's looking for. The outside zone is based on those tackles creating those lanes combined with another blocker, perhaps a fullback in this case, creating that separate lane. So you don't have the A and the B gap to run through, which is an inside zone.
Right.
You have the C and the D zones to run through. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with the offensive linemen. I mean, I love talking about how the Bears turned 5 picks into 11.
Yeah.
And of 11 of those picks, how many of them were offensive linemen? Quite a bit. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'm getting old. But he doubled down on offensive line, and it really, hopefully it's going to show in the long run once we start playing games, because once you start doubling down on stuff, you're gonna hope to hit on one of those, right? And J2K says tackle set up the bam and bounce lane. The bend is the counter cutback. 100%. Yeah. You get that cutback lane on the inside into the C gap, and you're off to the races. And that's going to be a fun thing to watch with the second string running back that we have. I'm totally losing my train of thought. Herbert, Khalil Herbert.
Yeah.
He does really well with hitting those holes. So it'll be really fun to see him coming in and so does Montgomery, by the way. I love Montgomery, but we're gonna have a 1-2 punch that's gonna be. I'm very excited about it, because I think the running backs that we have. Ebner's from the Treston Ebner, the rookie that they drafted, is from the same scheme. He knows how to hit those holes as well. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch this offense progress with the quarterback and the running scheme that we have and the players that we have. And I'm sick of everyone poo-pooing on every Bears player because they didn't do this or didn't do that. And I'm very excited for this season. I really am. I cannot wait.
I would say, one more thing to add to the wide zone concept is that you don't have to run many plays.
Right.
You can keep your playbook real small.
When you look at the Rams, they run a lot of the same set, like single back, 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver. What are we doing?
And you can run 3-4 plays off that same look, and the defense is guessing. And like I said, you run that thing perfect, and then your players, you take the thinking out the game and let the athletes make the plays. And when you have an athlete for a quarterback, you have David Montgomery, who's athletic, but he's also powerful. Herbert, who's more of an athlete. Like I said, you can start opening up, with your receivers, and then you can run some jet. I think, was it Velus Jones? He can run I want to say he's relatively quick. He can run a jet. You start going outside.
4.28. He has like a 4.28 40.
Something like his speed was, to my understanding, it stood out. So, yeah, there's a lot you can do.
100% J2K. Bend is rare because NFL defenses are so gap-oriented and stay in their lanes, but when they don't, it's open field. 100%. Off to the races. That's why I'm very interested to see Treston Ebner in this offense as well. Not only out of the running game, but out of the passing game. I think he's going to be doing a lot more out of the passing game as a rookie, personally. Okay. I might be wrong. But if in case you don't know about Treston Ebner, Brian, he's another 4.3, running back.
Was he out of Baylor? Is it Baylor? Yes. Yeah, yes. I think in college I saw him, and he was solid. He's a solid. Baylor ran an exciting offense.
A lot of screens, a lot of outside zone. He's going to be good in this defense or in this offense. I'm actually pretty excited to see what he's going to do, because I think they're going to use him as a chess piece, kind of like they did Tariq Cohen.
Could you put him in the slot? Could he be a slot guy, or
you can put him in the backfield, move him out into the slot, and then off to the races.
Yeah.
You disguise your offense, get the right matchup, get him out in the slot. They're going to be doing a lot of screens with him, a lot of slot with him, in my personal opinion. So we'll see what happens with that. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I cannot wait for training camp to get started.
Well, you got less than 14 hours, less than 12 hours.
We're going to take this one last question, and then we're going to wrap this up. We'll take a few more questions, and we'll wrap this up. Who is going to be the shining star in training camp?
I mean, you already look. It's easy to say Fields, but we've already exhausted that. I mean, like who's going to like stand out?
Well, aside from Fields,
yeah, Mooney. I mean,
Mooney. Yeah.
I mean, he
think,
may have a breakout.
Yeah, I think Montgomery could have a shining training camp.
Herbert.
I think on defense, if you're talking about defense, shining star, it could be Kyler Gordon. It could be
Yeah,
Brisker.
I was about to say Gordon. Yeah.
I mean, hell, it could be Jalen Johnson because he has Kyler Gordon there now. Who knows? I mean, that's a really good question. Pringle. I'm actually a lot higher on Pringle than most people are. J2K. I think he's going to fill that solid 2 role for the Bears. I'm just an overly optimistic Bears fan, so it's hard for me to get down on. I mean, we're talking to optimistic Dan. If you would have talked to optimistic Dan or Mr. Shorty, optimistic Mr. Shorty, you couldn't have found him in the Trestman era. The Trestman era had Mr. Shorty like that, like stopped watching Bears because of that. Like I put him on in the background. Yeah, thank you. Put him on in the background while I was doing stuff. I'd come in and like, what's the score? Ah, shit. Never mind. Did they catch up yet? They're still down by 25. Okay, never mind. That was very depressing. At least the Nagy era wasn't that bad. Steve Phillips, who's the home run in this past draft? It's either Brisker. Well, gosh. It could be Brisker or Gordon. It could be Velus Jones. I mean, Velus Jones could be something that he could just blow up out of nowhere. If you have the right timing and rhythm coming from Fields in the passing game with his new throwing mechanics and just getting the ball out quickly, it could be Velus Jones. He's more seasoned as an older rookie, but gosh, Steve, it could also be Brisker over Jordan or Gordon. I mean, it could be Brisker over Gordon. I mean, Gordon is an easy answer, right? Because he has Jalen Johnson next to him. So Jalen Johnson could take off the pressure from himself and put it to Gordon, and then Gordon could flourish because everyone's throwing the ball his direction, right? So then we're really going to get to see what Gordon could be in this new defense because they know they're not going to, be passing the ball Johnson's way that much. So good questions. I really do believe in Gordon and Brisker too, J2K. The two of them were like it was like 2 back-to-back home runs in that draft for me.
Yeah.
And then they turned 5 picks into 11. I mean, that was like back-to-back home runs. And you add into that all the offensive linemen that they added to their mix and another good running back. They even got in yeah, have you heard about Danny Wally and the sleeper undrafted free agent next year's drafts? So, yes, I agree, J2K. They're going to be golden for years. The two of them, I think, are going to be just lock, stock, and barrel for the next few years. That's for sure. The problem is going to come when their contracts are up, right? We're going to have to pay both of them at the same time. Yeah. So let's just enjoy this while we can, because I'm sure they're going to both be superstars in their first, not superstars, but they're going to be studs in their first, few years. And then, boy, when that contract year comes up for the two of them, and they both want $85 million a year apiece, we're going to be like, well, at least we got the most out of them we could at this point, right? Dominic Robinson. Simon, yes, I do love Dominic Robinson. Defensive end, safeties, and cornerback will improve greatly with a year with new coaching influences. 100% agree. Plus, that's Matt Eberflus's specialties. Defense, linebackers, safety, cornerbacks. I think he's not gonna be the defensive coordinator. He said he's gonna give that up to the defensive coordinator, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch what they do with the players that they have, because they definitely got 2 first-round picks in the second round, and then they turned those 5 into 6 more. So I'm more, what I'm concerned about more is like what's going to happen with the offensive line and that right guard position. Is it going to be the addition of Michael Schofield, who they just signed today? Is that going to be Sam Mustipher? Is that going to be? Thank God it's not going to be Dakota Dozier, the revolving Dozier. I hate to poo-poo on injuries, but Dakota Dozier getting injured is probably the best thing that happened to the Bears offensive line this year, because they were planning on actually playing that guy. Oh, that's scary. G2K, I love that Matt won't be DC. We need better structure and less ego than what Nagy did. Yes. Nagy did, yes. 100%. You can tell that Eberflus has taken over this team as a head coach. He's not taking it over as a defensive coordinator trying to put his own spin on things. He's trying to make it his own team. He's trying to work within the team aspect. He's going to offensive meetings. He's going to defensive meetings. He's being a true head coach. He really does inspire me. The new coach does. And I think that's some of the things that nobody has really talked about is, when comparing, everyone wants to shit all over the Bears, new coaching staff because they're an unknown, and they want to crap all over the quarterback because in years past we never had one, and last year we made him look bad because of our head coach. So all that's understandable, and it gives the talking heads stuff to poo-poo about. But it's time for you to eat your own poo-poo. That's what I have to say. Time to eat your own poo-poo. Because this year, I guarantee you, we are not the worst team in the league. And I guarantee you, Justin Fields does not throw the most interceptions in the league. Period. Justin Fields played 10 games last year. He threw 10 interceptions. If he played 17 games next year and threw 17 interceptions, it still won't be the highest interception rate. So just go bite it, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, all of you. Just go bite it. Just go sit at it, Potsy. Brian, final thoughts. Defense, offense, and coaching. What do you think, buddy?
Well, I'd say with Eberflus, he right now has impressed me. Especially, I love how he took the hit for what was the OTAs, the too much physical contact, and then they lost practices. I think that was all he did that by plan, you know. And what he did is that he brought a toughness to the team, right. And he's holding people accountable. And he doesn't care. Oh, we can't practice, darn. But we got a lot done, that day that, certain players were getting knocked around a little bit and finding out, who is tough, who's not tough. And I'm starting to see other coaches, good coaches, do that. I also like the fact what you just brought up was that he's not taking over the defense. He's leaving that to Alan Williams, Right. He'll oversee it, obviously. I mean, any good coach will do that. But he's going to focus on the game management probably. He's going to focus on the players. He's going to focus on, being the head coach, being the, the face of the organization. And that's what they need right now.
100%.
So
when he comes in acting like a coach from day one and speaking like a coach from day one and building the attitude, J2K, and we're gonna hit this. We're gonna go into this hits philosophy,
Yes.
as training camp starts, and now it's gonna come down to they're gonna be flying all over the place, getting to the ball, and it's gonna make the offense better. It's gonna make the defense better. It's gonna make Justin Fields shine. It's gonna make Justin Fields make his players around him better on offense, playing against a good defense.
I agree.
And I agree, J2K. I really hope we start fast. I'm worried it'll take a few games for everyone to get the new offense. I disagree with you on that. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think they're going to start off fast because nobody has enough tape on them, J2K. And then after a while, they'll build up the tape and they'll have all this game film to practice against and to game film from or game plan from. And then from there, it's going to be a little bit harder. But I think the best chance that we have to beat the Niners and the Packers is the beginning of the season, especially in Green Bay. So, wow. Thank you all so much for coming in tonight and joining us on our premiere of Bears Country podcast. This has been amazing. It happened on Walter Payton's birthday. It could not mean more to me than that, especially after it came after the day that my father passed. So this all just means to me that this show is going to be a lot of fun to do and just have fun with it, roll with it. Let's talk Bears. And Brian, you are welcome on anytime that you want to be on this podcast. I love you, brother. Anytime you want to be on, just let me know.
Hey, I appreciate. I had a lot of fun. This was a great conversation, and it's funny now that embracing the Chicago Bears again because I've gotten away from them. Living in Georgia, you don't get any games, busy schedule, family, things like that. Since you and I rekindled, our friendship and hanging out again and talking and everything like that. This really has rejuvenated my love for the Bears, and I'm really excited for this year. I'm optimistic that they're gonna have a good year, and I'm glad everybody's poo-pooing them so that they can take that poo and throw it right back in their face when they do make the playoffs. They make this run and they start progressing towards that Super Bowl contending team. So it's gonna be an exciting year.
And like I said, easier schedule, extra playoff team. I mean, what else can you ask for, right? Playoffs abound for me.
Yep.
I want to say thank you to everyone, and especially J2K here, one of the people that I've been in many podcasts with. J2K, thank you so much for. Sorry, I put up the wrong one. Thank you so much, J2K, for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to have you. I hope you enjoyed it. This is just going to get better from here. If you missed the beginning, I think you might have. You're going to want to go back and rewatch that because it was kind of funny. And I think I might do a segment on that again about bad lip reading from press conferences because that was pretty fun. I think that could be a hit. Bad lip reading from head coach press conferences via Mr. Shorty. Brian, any last thoughts?
No, and I definitely I would appreciate having another chance to come on and discuss the Bears, discuss football. It's a great sport, and I really enjoyed my time. I was nervous, but it was a good nervousness. It was like a game time nervousness. You kind of don't know what to expect, but you have a plan in play, which I really enjoyed. You laid out the topics that we're going to discuss. We kind of got to go off on a tangent, which is even more fun. And this is great. So thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be the first guest on your inaugural show, and I'm looking forward to future shows.
Brian, I'm honored to have you as my first guest on this show. Being such a longtime friend, you have really good points in your talking points on football. You're an educator, so you know how to speak well. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here, and I would love to have you on again. I'll keep you in that rotary. Maybe it's very soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all tonight for tuning in to Bears Country Podcast, the premiere. Look forward to the next one coming next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, because it might get a lot goofier. The more and more I get better at this, the more and more fun I'm going to have, the more and more you're going to like it. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I love you all. Thank you to my great friend, Brian Reberg. Love you, my friend. Everyone, have a good night.
Bears. Bears Country Podcast.
Oh.